Welcome and thank you for checking in at the Inner Game of Change podcast, where I focus on exploring the multi-layers of managing organizational change. My guests cover a diverse number of critical topics to enable effective and sustainable change in the workplace. My name is Ali Juma, and you're listening to the Inner Game of Change podcast. My guest today is Patrick Link, the editor and co-author of the Amazon bestseller, The Design Thinking Playbook, a professor and co-founder of the Trihow method. Patrick is a wealth of practical knowledge and thought leadership in the area of design thinking. I am grateful to have Patrick sharing his knowledge and insight with me today. So Patrick, thank you so much for joining the Inner Game of Change podcast. I am grateful for your time and really excited to have this interview with you.
I'm happy to be here and to talk to you, and I'm looking forward to our chat.
Fantastic. Today we're going to cover, you've co-authored the book called The Design Thinking Playbook, and it is a playbook. But before we start talking about this particular book, Patrick, do you mind introducing yourself to our listeners?
Yes, I'm happy to do so. Since 12 years now, I'm professor of product innovation at the University of Applied Sciences in Lucerne. I'm actually born in Switzerland and lived there, worked there since all the times. I was building chemical plants, working at Siemens in different positions. And then my PhD at the ETH in Zurich. There I got in contact with systems engineering as a problem-solving approach, which I love. I think it's one of the best things I've learned at the university, how to solve problems. And then at the Lucerne University, I got in touch with design thinking, and I discovered that as a complete new journey. So that's part of myself. Maybe besides that, 4 years ago, I'm co-founder of Trihow. That's a startup where we combine the analog and the digital world. And also with that, we support the digital transformation of the companies.
Fantastic. Really happy to have you here. Give us an overview on the purpose behind putting this playbook together.
So actually, it's a cool story how it happens. I've never planned to make one book or even the second with the tool book. So actually, the story starts in the 80s.
Wow!
That Larry Leif from Marriott, a woman from Switzerland. Larry Leif is professor at Stanford, and together with Terry Winogard and David Kelly at Stanford University, he actually founded design thinking, the D School, and all, let's say, this global movement in design thinking coming from Stanford. And he spent his sabbatical in Switzerland, living in a village next to our university. And so we got in contact. We got trained by himself in design thinking, and afterwards by some of his colleagues from Stanford. And we just starting, experimenting, trying it out, see what we can do with design thinking, how it works, where it works, and try to figure it out how to use it. And I think that's what everything should do. You get something, you get a new approach, which is maybe a little bit different than what you've practicing before, and you just look at it as a child. So looking what we can do with that, how it works, what is working, what is fine for me, what not. And so we started. That's not the story of the book. So the story of the book continues. Larry told us we should do something like D.Swiss, just a notion. He said he compares Switzerland to the Silicon Valley, which I guess it's true from the mentality, from the technology orientation, and so on. And we built that community. We meet together, and we wanted, as a group, promote design thinking, which was not very known in Switzerland at that time. And one idea, and Michael has this idea, was we could make a book. And then out of this group of professionals, of experienced people, we started writing that book together. After this book was published, and also happily it's translated in different language. It's now available, I guess, in 14 languages. The lecture, or the readers came to us and said, it would be good to have a book with the templates, with the tools. And first I was not so keen to write a second book, but then I realized that if you would like to really practice design thinking, to apply it, in the playbook we describe the mindset, the approach, but not really concrete advice how to implement it. So we created the design thinking toolbox with the 50 most important design thinking tools, which you can use, download the templates, and really apply design thinking. So I guess the combination of both, the white design thinking playbook, the black design thinking toolbox, helps really the people to use design thinking, to work with it, to try out new things.
Who did you write it for? Who uses your books most of the time?
We have both. So we have the beginner who would like to learn more about design thinking, who would like to understand it. We have a lot of students at university or professors at university using the books. So the beginner is one target audience. And interestingly, we have a lot of experienced design thinker which reads and uses the book just because of the inspiration they get. They get motivated to try out new things, to try out new tools, to do it differently, and to see, let's say, everything they do as an experiment. And so you need to do new things in an experiment.
Fantastic. The book talks about, so this is written, I just want to mention that on the record, that written by Michael Lewrick, yourself, Patrick, and Larry Leifer. Is that right?
That's right, yes.
Fantastic. The book subtitle is Mindful Digital Transformation of Teams, Products, Services, Business, and Ecosystems. It is a playbook because the proposition in here is that it's not a story, it's actually a tool kit, and also injects new ideas in the way we look at design thinking. Am I close to right here?
Yeah. It's also not the idea, let's say, when you've written the book that you read it from A to Z, but you take, let's say, this chapter which interests you. Maybe for the beginner, he's interesting to understand at the beginning what design thinking is. And let's say the more experienced he dig in those subjects who is interesting for him or for her.
Fantastic. So, Patrick, design thinking, what is it and why is it more important now than ever?
So maybe start with the question what it is. Maybe difficult to explain because the name design thinking is not so good. It's not like designing something like we understood it, especially in the German language. In English, maybe design is the creation of something, then it's close, and it's not had nothing to do about thinking,
sure,
but about doing. So maybe we can define design thinking as an intuitive and human-centered problem-solving approach.
Yeah.
And it's more a mindset, more an approach than, let's say, a concrete method. So what we do in design thinking, we do problem solving through rapid iteration and experiments. And these experiments are often conducted with simple prototypes. So you try to learn fast. So the motto is fail often to succeed sooner. And so with those short tests with the customers, we learn more about the customers, his context, his problems, and we can find solutions which are meeting customer needs, so they are desirable. The solution is from a technical point of view feasible and from an economical point of view viable. So it's a kind of approach to really find radical new approaches, new innovations. And when we're looking at the traditional way how companies deal, often they don't want to make problems. They don't want to have failures. So we have a zero failure culture. Actually, as a kid, we learned completely different. We try out things. We failed. We learned. So we learned up to stand, to walk, to ski, to play tennis or whatever. It's not that we had an analytical approach there. In school, at university, on our jobs, we've been trained on an analytical approach. and we almost forgot how to learn with trial and error. And I guess our problems now they are so wicked, they are so complex. We live in a VUCA world, so it's volatile, it's uncertain, it's complex, and it's ambiguous. So our problems cannot be solved by a long-term hero, but by an interdisciplinary team.
Yeah.
And the more interdisciplinary the team is, the more heterogeneous, the more challenges it gets. Because you have to create a common language, a common vision, a common understanding, also maybe a common culture and mindset in the team. And that applies more or less in all projects, in innovation projects, in change projects. And what happens when you have a different understanding, you have different opinions, and then people start to talk about their opinion. I have mine, you have yours, and who's right? We could discuss for hours.
Yeah.
And maybe in a company, the HIPO opinion counts. You know the HIPO opinion?
No.
HIPO means the highest paid person's opinion.
Okay.
And that's probably not the right one. So which opinion is right? It's easy. It's the customer's opinion. This one counts. So we have to go out. Steve Blank said there's no evidence in the building, so get out of it. So that's also, let's say, the mindset in design thinking. Get out of your building, get into the context of your customer, and test your ideas. Test them fast, test them cheap, build critical prototypes. So then we learn as a team from our customers, from our users, and we understand, let's say, the user's opinion, and we create this common understanding. And probably if the two of us have two different opinions, because we have two different backgrounds, we will accept the user's opinion, and the truth probably is somewhere in the middle. So it's not that one team member is completely right all the time.
Yes. So you talked about interdisciplinary teams, which makes me think that most organizations nowadays, especially the big ones, they have different departments operating in sort of a silo environment. How does design thinking work to bring the silos down, or will it help?
So we try in design thinking to form really those interdisciplinary teams, to bring in people from all those silos together, people from different hierarchies, from different, let's say, experience background, and to work together on that challenge.
Yeah.
So we try to avoid doing design thinking projects in one department, in one team, in one silo, even though sometimes you have to, but if I have the chance, I try to make it as interdisciplinary as possible.
And that's because problems or problem statements, whenever you design them or define them, most likely they do not impact one department only. They've got other, perhaps unseen impacts that impacts other departments, and hence it'll be wise to get a mixed audience from different departments to try to solve a problem.
Let's say there are some problems which are easy to solve. And some problems which are clear, the user needs are clear, the context is clear, and you just have to do it.
Yeah.
Then it's, on a way, it's not a wicked problem. It's a time problem, it's a resource problem to do it. Then there are some problems which are wicked. You try to start at one end and you realize I cannot do it because of that. You try something else. You look at a different perspective. And the more you look at it, the more wicked it gets. You don't see a simple solution. And then you have, let's say, two options. One is to sit and wait and hope that the problem disappears by itself and gets smaller. That's what maybe we as a whole society tries to do with the climate change.
Yeah.
However, the wicked problems are not disappearing. So they're just getting bigger and bigger. And there's one point in a company's time that they have to address those wicked problems. And then I think a design thinking approach can be very helpful to address those problems, and especially to combine, let's say, the intuitive design thinking problem solving approach with other approaches, which are more analytical, like systems engineering, system thinking, or in general to combine design thinking tools with other tools, which you have in your backpack, which you are familiar with. And so you can come to completely new ideas or solutions. You can apply design thinking, let's say, in all kind of environment for all kind of topics. You can use it for radical changes on products, on businesses, on processes. So, and it's also therefore useful for internal change projects.
Great. Patrick, I want to ask you about the relationship between design thinking and system thinking. Is there a relationship? And does a design thinker or a group sitting together, how complex is it to think about a design of a new product or a solution, and at the same time thinking about the existing system in the organization?
So actually, when we do design thinking, we always take one particular point of view. We look at one small element out of the whole system without, let's say, understanding or looking at the whole system. We just understand this part, this element, the next one. And with all those rapid iterations, we learn more and more. Sure. We understand, let's say, the situation better, the context better. We have new ideas. We get motivated to do something else. So it's a very interesting journey. And once you start in prototyping and testing and co-creation with your customer, you enjoy it and you discover new things and you could go forever. Just with new prototypes, with new ideas, better ideas, stranger ideas, and so on. But maybe you're losing the sense of the whole. And then it's good to change perspective and try to draw your system and to see, we've been working only in that area, or this area is unclear. This one is clear. So it helps you to understand the big picture. Often at the very beginning, if you have a really weak problem, you cannot even draw the system. I told you let's say a complex problem to draw a system map. If you're not that experienced, if you don't know the context, it's very difficult or maybe even impossible. So I see that often with my students. I told them at the beginning of a bachelor thesis what they need to do. And one thing I like to ask them to do is to draw a system map. And often they fail because they don't understand the problems yet. And with design thinking, they make a few iterations. They start to understand the situation. And at one point of time in their journey, they're able to draw that system. So I think system thinking and design thinking can be extremely good combined. And the same applies, let's say, for systems engineering or for any analytical problem-solving cycle, that they can easily be combined with the intuitive problem-solving cycle.
I agree with you. The reason sometimes I notice in the projects and the clients that I service, and I meet with design thinkers and facilitators, I often see we've got a couple of problems or challenges. First of all, most organizations do not have a dedicated design thinking team. And so therefore they reach out to the external, so they get a contractor or a consultant from outside, which makes it really double the problem, because the external consultant, they might be tempted to focus on one topic and one topic only, forgetting about the whole, because the whole is ambiguous to an external person, and the whole is actually, what I mean by the whole is the system. And this is, I think, where your point around getting a mixed group of different departments, so we get slightly more or better clarity around the hidden spots in the system that we need to be aware of when we design the solution.
Yeah, that's true. However, let's have an external facilitator can be very helpful. And external cannot just be if you have, let's say, 2 or 3 departments, you take a moderator from another department who is not really involved in that particular process or aspect, so that you can really have this outside view. And if that's not possible, and you have to nominate, let's say, an internal facilitator, then I think it's important that the facilitator just has the facilitation role and not tries to give inputs, give contents, and to moderate the group.
Sure.
Because that, I guess it's not. I try it sometimes. I need to try it, especially at our startup company, but it's not satisfying because you cannot do both together. So try to separate those roles. And then what we try to achieve is to have this new picture. So looking from a different perspective onto that context, to have this children's mind. So being interested, trying to really understand it. So, and that's maybe a bias if we know it already. So if I know the answer, I don't ask the question. And we have to have the mindset to ask the questions, even if we believe to know the answer from our customer, and then to dig deeper, ask why, try to understand it, try to see where are, let's say, the pain points, the undiscovered pain points up to now.
Yes.
And then focus on those. So I guess the interview phase, the observing the user, the understanding phase, the building empathy phase is crucial. And a neutral facilitator, maybe for him it's even easier.
Yeah, no, I think you mentioned an important point, which is the successful design thinkers and process design thinkers in particular. I've noticed that they are good at suspending their biases, and they're very good at being curious and in observing and trying to assess where the problem is, and also being able to offer everybody in the room an opportunity for an input.
And they're also good in listening. So it's all about listening and taking those key elements or extracting the key elements, what we've heard in an interview from different people, and summarize that to let's say, find the right point of view.
Great. I want to shift gear and I want to talk about testing. How does good testing play a role in the success of the final product? And I want to talk about testing, Patrick, because I'm going to test my knowledge now out of reading the book. I think the process is that you observe, and what else do? You identify, and then you design a prototype, and then you test it, and then you implement it. Is that right, or close to right?
Yeah, let's say we can split the whole journey in two pieces. We have the first piece, or we can look at it in the double diamond model from the British Council. So the first element is the problem space. So we try to understand the problem by observing, by doing interviews, and so on. So we try to understand the user and his problems. And then we select one particular element, so that the so-called point of view. And for that one, we're going into the solution phase, on the solution space. And there we build, or we try to find ideas in the ideation phase. We select one of the ideas.
Yeah.
And build a prototype for that idea, which then we can test with our customers.
Yeah. So the testing,
so we have both,
the testing piece is what I'm interested in, and I often see the testing as a change practitioner. I'm always interested in the final product, and therefore I try myself to be having a seat at the table at the design stage. Because I need to be part of the team, because later it will help me help people understand the change, and therefore there's more likelihood that the change will be adopted, whether that's actually internal teams or external customers. Do we test for functionality, or do we test for design and how we feel about the product? What do we do?
I guess it depends very much on the stages where you are. What is the purpose? What you would like to learn in, let's say, the whole iteration? At the beginning of the journey, it's more about understanding the user. It's about understanding the problem. And we try to build something which solves these problems just to understand if we have understood the problem. So testing is need finding, and everything which we apply in the interview phase, in the need finding phase, in building empathy, we should apply it also in the testing phase. So when we have in mind that testing is need finding, testing is not selling our product, it's not selling our idea. Testing is listening again to our customers to understand why our solution is not working or how our idea could be improved. And I often see in testing that people try to convince the user that their idea is the right one and he's mistaken. And it's the other way around. We have to be convinced by the user that our idea is not working or which part is not working to be able to improve the ideas. Yes. If the customer is telling us that something is not like he wants it, we have to dig deeper and understand why and not explain him that it's working anyway. So then the test is useless. We have to test in a way to find out why it's not working and not test in a way to find out that it's working. So it's a shift in mindset. And then it's applying in all the processes. I don't want to have a proof what is working. I would like to understand what not and where to improve it and why it's not working. So then again, it's this understanding.
Yes.
Which is key.
You remind me of somebody that taught me something that really helped me throughout my career, which is sometimes we try to perfect something in the lab only to realize later that, all of this effort actually is meaningless when the customer starts using the solution. And therefore, this is where, you're mentioning how important it is that the customer or the voice of the customer is the most important voice that we need to listen to. However, the way I look at it now, and even in my own practice, I follow a simple formula, which is really make it good, make it better. So I start with any problem statement, I want to make it work. Then I want to improve it later rather than trying to get a perfect solution at the outset, only to realize that retrofitting is actually very hard.
Yeah, I think it's good to start with something, to build something fast and to learn.
Yes.
And then, as you said, to make it better. And I think one key point is to do that with your customers, with your users. So to collaborate or to co-create with your users, to be in a close contact.
Great.
That's one of the challenges in traditional companies. So if you have a traditional innovation process, you are in contact with your customers at the very beginning. So you listen to your customer, try to find out what's the problem it is, to get his input. And then once you believe you have understood it, you build your product. You make the specification, you make the development, design, and so on, and then you test it. And if you have a project duration from the very beginning of your customer contact to the final end when you test it, and if it's a more complex technical product, it can last easily 2 years. I had some projects within Siemens which last even much longer. So if you don't have any contact with your customer in that time, the thing is just working if you understood your customer right, completely right, and if the customer hasn't changed his opinion during those 2 years of time. And I guess nowadays it's clear that times are so dynamic, it's changing so fast that something which was valid 2 years ago or even 6 months ago might not be valid anymore now. So we have to be in a close contact with our customers. So in the concept phase, in the development phase, in the testing phase, in all those phases, to be really sure that we build the right thing, that we solve the right problems. Otherwise, we discover we have a perfect solution. However, it's not the right problem we are solving.
Yes. Problem statements. How complex is it, or how easy is it to actually come up with a problem statement? And do you hear the leaders of an organization to talk about the problem, or do you manage that as part of the interdisciplinary team gathering exercise?
I guess finding the right problem to solve, finding the right problem statement is very difficult in general. Because let's say you at the beginning of the project, as little, which is normal. And you have to make the decisions which problems we would like to solve, having no deep ideas about those problems. So that makes a difference to select the right problem statement or the right design challenge to start. On the other side, it's design thinking is a very failure tolerant process, because what you do if you make those fast iterations, you learn fast that you might focus on the wrong problem, and you discover with a test with your customers that the other thing is more important to him, and then you can change perspective and build or starting digging deeper into that different area. So it's just about to start. Maybe another thing which happens is sometimes we have challenges which are too broad. We would like to save the whole world. Some challenges are too narrow. We call them fix the pen gap. Maybe the big pen with the blue cap.
Yes.
The blue cap has a little hole in it, and that hole was not there at the beginning. So sometimes they added that hole. And a lot of people ask themselves, why is there a hole in that cap? And the hole is there because if a kid, the small child swallows the cap could be stuck in the trachea, and the child maybe cannot get any air. So if there's a hole in that cap, the child gets enough air. So it's a very small problem on the way.
With a big impact.
If it's with a big impact if it's your child.
Yes.
So it's definitely a problem worth to solve. However, it's a very tiny problem. And I just wanted to make that once you have discovered that, you can fix that solution. It's not a very wicked problem. And on the other hand, we have this save the world problems. And in both cases, if you select a challenge which is too broad, then in the point of view phase, in the prototyping phase, you won't be able to save the whole world. So you start at some small piece and build on that one. And on the other side, if it's too broad, too narrow, and you're in the ideation phase, you will find a lot of ideas what you can do as well. And then let's say you have a chance to, with the iteration, to find the right problem statement, and to focus on the right it at the end. So don't worry with the problem statement. Do your best and just start and do it. And then with the experimentation, the iteration, it will become good.
Fantastic. I want to ask you about your thoughts around our roles as change practitioners and as part of the design thinking process. We focus a lot on the people side of change, and we often try to make the change happen by facilitating the adoption, the training, and also getting the feedback and sustaining the change. How do you see our role, especially nowadays, as part of the whole design thinking process?
I experience many change processes in my life at different businesses, at universities, and so on. And there's often many change processes involved. And I experience that companies try to do their best, honestly. So they would like to inform the employees in the beginning why they're doing, what they're going to do, how it's going to happen. And then they do it. And then they try to inform, let's say, to communicate the changes to the employees, what they've done.
Yeah.
And often it's not the right problem which has been solved. And there are people would like to change, and people would like to have work in a successful company, and they would like to work in a decent place. They are not against change in general, but the change should lead to a better future, and they have to understand, let's say, this shared vision, and maybe they would like to collaborate and build on that shared vision. And I think for change processes, it's ideal to work with design thinking, to make some small changes in interdisciplinary teams, to try out new things. If it's working and it goes, let's say, towards the shared vision or this direction you want to go, you can spread it and you can deploy it into different teams, different departments, continue to improve, let's say, that particular change. And if it's not working, the ideas you had in mind, you can adapt it and you can make it better. So I think with design thinking, you can take the employees into that journey, making that change happen step by step, adapt it into the right direction. And it's similar like an innovation process where you build a completely new product. It's not about informing the customer what we're going to do and then presenting the final product at the end. It's about co-creation that product to really understand what is the best way to do it. And that's one thing I'm often missing, or I was missing in my change processes. And so my recommendation is really to go that journey with the employees, to build empathy for the people, to treat the employees as people, not as human resources, and build that together.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for this. One last question, and we are coming to the end of the podcast. There's a lot of talk now, and actually there are a lot of digital transformation projects happening. What would be some of the considerations you would like us as a change community to take into account during those digital transformation? And you just mentioned that we need to embed ourselves as part of the design thinking process when we think about training and communication and what works and what doesn't work to embed the change. What other things would you think we need to consider?
I guess the digital transformation is not about digital, but it's about people.
Yes.
So we have to build something for the people. We have to understand, let's say, what makes sense and what not, and to create something meaningful, let's say, in the digital transformation. The next thing is start small, but start. I guess we have to go into that direction, and let's say with those experiments, build this common vision and then move stepwise into the right direction, not making a big bang, but really trying out things. And I think the COVID crisis showed us what is possible when you do some experiments. We are not familiar, or most of us, with Zoom, with Teams and so on, with making online workshops and so on. And by trying it out, we all were forced to. We started small, but we started because we needed to, and we learned and we adapted our processes and so on. And personally, for the digital transformation, I believe that people, human beings, are strongly connected to the real world, and they would have something tangible, something haptic, an orientation in the analog space, and then being able to dig deeper digitally. I think we should make the digital transformation more tangible by combining, let's say, also physical aspects with the digital aspect.
I think I was thinking about this the other day, and I was talking to a colleague, and we were thinking that we want to make digital transformation human transformation projects, because predominantly it is about people, regardless of what project it is. I also like, and I do believe in the principle of small iterations on a continuous basis, rather than a big bang, a whale of a change, because only then you will learn as you progress, and also people in general accept small incremental changes rather than an overnight change.
And also they see that maybe something is not working, and then you stop that and you do it differently.
Absolutely.
You also trust that the thing at the end you're presenting will work because they've seen that you've stopped things which are not working.
Yes. And obviously that's the underlying principle of the agile and the episodic change approach that will save probably the company a lot of money and also save the company a lot of headache if we get the wrong solution presented to the customers. I'm thoroughly enjoying this, and you made me think about quite a few things. The book, the Design Thinking Playbook, it is a playbook. It's designed as a toolbox to add more to an experienced design thinker. Anybody who is interested in human-centered designs. And also, I'm a big believer that my colleagues in the change practice community will benefit a lot if they get a copy of the book and also understand some of the frameworks that have been presented in the book. They're really useful, especially around the facilitation as well, because as a change practitioners, we do facilitate a lot of workshops ourselves. And I find the book extremely useful in those situations. Patrick, how would listeners get a copy of the book?
So that's easy. You can get it in all the bookstores. You can get it obviously also at the big American online bookstore.
Is it on Amazon?
It's on Amazon.
Yeah. I think most of us in Australia get it from Amazon. Yeah. And we're going to put all the information on the podcast details and referring our listeners to it. It's been fantastic having you, Patrick, all the way from Switzerland. I know it was almost 9 o'clock your time now. And it's been a pleasure having you as part of the Inner Game of Change podcast guest list. And I probably will need to have you sometime at the end of the year to cover another aspect of the design thinking journey. Any final words from you?
No, it was very pleasant. Thank you for that chat. I'm happy if you get the link on the book on your homepage. And what we can provide as well is we've written a small booklet, a free booklet about virtual design thinking workshops, because obviously the design thinking is very strong and used when you can work face-to-face together in a group. That also applying, let's say, for the change process. I guess it's very beneficial to have everyone standing around the table. And standing around the table, not sitting around the table, but that's a different story. Unfortunately, nowadays, we cannot do all the workshops in physical. We have to do some workshops online. Maybe I personally believe that the future of work, the new work, will be hybrid, that we have some people being on-site, other ones are connected online, and we get used to that. I think it's still a challenge how to do hybrid workshops or doing online workshops, and especially for the online workshops, it helps if you have tools which you can use like Miro, like mural boards, and especially the tools from the toolbox can then help to moderate those workshops. And we have conducted, as I've said, this booklet with some tips and hints how to conduct online workshops, and I'm happy to put that on your site that the listener to that podcast can download that booklet for free as well.
That will be fantastic, and I'm going to put the link in there for my listeners. It's been fantastic having you, Patrick. I really appreciate your time. Very grateful, and I thoroughly enjoyed this. The book, again, is the Design Thinking Playbook, written by Michael, Patrick, and Larry. Patrick, I'll let you enjoy your day, and until next time, stay well and stay safe.
Thank you very much. I wish that to all the listeners to the podcast as well. Stay healthy, stay safe, enjoy yourself, doing some experiments, learning new things, and be happy when you learn.
Thank you so much. Be happy when you learn. Thank you. Hi everyone, I hope you enjoyed listening to this episode. To know more about our guests and this podcast, check the innergameofchange.com.au website and remember to subscribe. I can't wait to share with you the next episode. Until then, stay well and stay safe.